Hey guys, welcome back. In this lesson, I want to go over even more advanced usages for visibility graphics settings. Now, these principles of how to go through different settings and how to set up different factors, they can get extremely confusing. You'll deal with menus, nested in menus, nested in menus. So we're just going to take it one step at a time to make it as straightforward as possible. So what I've done for the sake of this lesson is I've taken the sample architecture project that comes with Revit and exported it as just a regular Revit file. And now what I'm going to do is take the role of a structural engineer to show you how they would manipulate their files and how they would set everything up so that everything coincides with the architectural file. So first I'll open the structural template. So even before we get started on anything, you'll see in the project browser that all of our levels have structural plans, we have an analytical model, and different options that we can work with. Another thing to be aware of is that your visibility graphics settings are going to be different than what you're used to. But now let's get started. The first thing I'll do as a structural engineer is go to the Insert tab and link the Revit file. So we have our file, which would have been received from the architect, and we're going to open that up. Keep in mind that their positioning should always be origin to origin. If you and your team don't do this, then coordinating your Revit file and working on it as the project continues will be extremely difficult. So always make sure that you select Auto Origin to Origin. Now you can press Open. Alright, now even after you've imported the architectural file, you may have to change certain options or settings to make sure you and the architect are on the same page. That way when you send your file back to the architect, they just have to relink it origin to origin as well. So again, I can't emphasize enough how critical this is when you're linking and working with consultants. Alright, now one thing that you'll notice is if you select your model, it's one single block which comes up as linked Revit model. Now we don't have very many options for working with this right now. We can't change it or select individual components. The only thing we can really do is move it, and you don't want to do that. So make sure you pin it before you start working. If you need to, you can always unpin it later on. So with that taken out of your hands, there's not really many changes you can make. And the reason for that is because you're linking in this Revit file. Furthermore, we're missing critical visibility graphics information. As a structural engineer looking at this, I can't really see where things are or what they're made of. So it's at this point that visibility graphics can really get pretty tricky, especially if you're using templates. So if we go to View Template and select one, say the Structural Framing Plan template, and then hit Apply and OK, what you're going to have to do is every single time you have a template set up for this particular view that correlates to the structural engineer's file, then you'll have to choose the structural framing plan, you'll have to click into the visibility graphic overrides, go to the Revit Links tab, and select that By Host View option. Because that is actually the option for your linked file. Now, by default, any Revit file that you link in will be considered to be by host. And by host means that it's going to refer to the settings that you used when you last worked on your main project, or what your level 2 may correlate to. So that means that all of these different options are determined by the by host setting, which is why you can't change them. If you want to change them, then you have to change it to by linked view, which lets you choose which floor plan level you want your view based off of. Or you can choose custom. By choosing custom, you have the ability to change every single thing that relates back to the visibility graphics settings of the architectural model, even phasing. So what you'll see when we put that into action, and let me actually move some of these windows so you can actually see what happens when this change is made. So again, if we go back into our visibility graphics override settings and select Revit Links, choose the dialog box, which now says custom because of what we did before. We can now change anything from phasing, which if I hit apply, you can see that that changed the way our model looks. So in essence, the changes that you make within these visibility graphics settings will change how your model actually looks. This doesn't mean that you're modifying or deleting or altering this file that you've acquired. All you're doing is changing its view properties, how it appears on your screen. This can help with background images. So for the structural engineer, they'll most likely gray out most of the architectural file, which again, you're able to accomplish by going to the Model Categories tab and, say, changing the different values to halftones, even though most linked files already come in halftoned. But again, you have the ability to make those changes by setting the view type to custom, although you still always have by host view and by linked view available, and they'll all impact your model and how you display it. By linked view will make it look like the model looked in the original file. By host returns it to the fairly nondescript settings we saw at first. So all of the changes that you make will impact the appearance of the architectural model. It'll be up to you to decide what's most appropriate for your needs. Now, part of the reason that this was so complicated and we had so many menus to go through was because we used a template file. If you're not using a template file, which I'll get rid of this one right now so we can see that, it's much easier. If you go to the View tab and then Visibility Graphics, then go to the Revit Links tab and click on Custom. Or yours may still say By Host. It'll just depend on how you last saved it. Then you'll be able to change your linked files and their view properties in the exact same way. And that's if you choose to display them. If you uncheck that button, then it actually will make the model disappear entirely. Alright, that covers linking and managing linked files visibility graphic settings. We'll see you in the next tutorial.